Gene, we want to have an honest conversation about a man's perspective on sexual intimacy. So I'd love to ask you a few questions. How do you think men are wired sexually?
I think a big generalization is that men are really visual. I can relate to that. With my wife, she tells me that I'm a very visual man. And frankly, she's beautiful. But when I'm drawn to her, I think my default is yes. I'm a very visual man, and a lot of men say they are visual too. The thing though, Randy, is I think that that is a cheap answer. If we're creating God's image, we're much more complex than that. So yes, we're visual, but we also are emotional men. We're spiritual men. And I think that's the part that we as men tend to forget, that our wiring involves all of those facets.
Why do men struggle with sexual intimacy?
Because we as men were not taught what sexual intimacy was, we looked elsewhere. We tried to learn it from our friends, what our friends knew. Maybe we looked at magazines back then, now it's the internet. So it was really the blind leading the blind. But the reality is, when we learned it that way, it was primarily just the physical act of sex. And that is a cheap imitation of sexual intimacy. But now knowing that I can be a real man, be an authentic man, be a strong man, yet having a tender heart, to really love my wife for who she is, to love her unconditionally and connect, share my feelings with her, knowing that maybe over a decade ago, I only knew anger, but now I can identify a lot more feelings because I've had more awareness of the man that God has created me to be aware of my feelings and my emotions, so that way I can love my wife at a much deeper level, to connect with her emotionally. And then there's the physical connection too. But all of that together is that gift that God has given us. I really appreciate that we can talk about this. Men need to talk about this. We don't need to be shameful. We don't need to have guilt. It's actually rejuvenating to know that we can talk about intimacy and see it as a way that God created it. Thank you.